Hello, my name is Miles Bubbett, and I chose to do my resource collection on ancient China. I teach sixth grade social studies. We cover ancient civilizations, economics, forms of government, and one of the topics that my students have always found interesting is ancient China, and I've always wanted to have more resources for it. So I chose to kind of develop that unit in my own practice by using this assignment. So let's dive in. To start off, we have the table of contents here. There's two things I want to note at this slide. First off, there are hyperlinks to other places within this slideshow because it's very long and it's frustrating to click back and forth. If you click on the hyperlinks, some of them will take you to other spaces within the slideshow to make it easy to navigate. I've tried to use color coordination in those hyperlinks to help you bop around this collection guide. And other links will take you to the external resources. You may notice that there is no reference section on this table of contents, and that is because I've chosen to either directly hyperlink you to the original resource where it appears in the guide, or if it's something like this artifact over here on the right-hand side, this picture of this mask, I have chosen to put the reference for these images and artifacts in the slide notes. So if you take a look down here, you get out a full screen and pull this up here. You can see that there's the reference down there at the bottom. Let's see if I can click and drag it. Sorry. There we go. You can see that right there. So everything is referenced where it is found, because if you look over here on the left-hand side, you can see that the slideshow is quite long. I thought it'd be easier for you to navigate and to find exactly what you're looking for if it was referenced where it appears. So let's take a look. This is to show you at the introduction here. I just talk about the overview of the literature that we found here, talking about fiction and nonfiction there. You may notice there's a button here that says the table of contents. This is one of those hyperlinks. When I click back, it takes me back to the table of contents just to make it easy to navigate. The literature, there was tons of nonfiction literature and fictional literature. Let's start by looking at some of the non-fictional literature here. I'm gonna click on that and it takes me straight to this point here. So you'll see there's the table of contents button again, and as I flip through, everything of this blue color is nonfiction literature, and when we get to the next section, it changes color to help you navigate nonfiction text. So everything's kind of split up that way. But nonfiction text, there was lots of awesome graphic novels, lots of epic adventures outlined. Sorry, I said nonfiction, this is fiction. I actually focused on using two separate nonfiction text, or the fiction text, to focus on as a pair text in my lesson plans, which we'll get to in a moment. But lots of rich storytelling here. I have a collection of some graphic novels that show how Chinese heritage mingles with modern day society and the impact of these ancient Chinese practices and cultural creations that diffused around the world. We have retellings of like the Cinderella story in Bound and a couple of others. I think you could make the parallel that I Rode a Horse of Milk White Jade is a parallel of Mulan, but set in a different geographical setting, which makes it a totally different story and regard. So anyway, lots to check out here, lots of great stuff. The nonfiction text is also very vast on ancient China, and it depends on what you're looking for here. There are some encyclopedia-esque books that are focused solely on China. These two texts over here on the right, China, Empire and Civilization and Cradles of Civilization China, these are like encyclopedias that only focus on Chinese culture and history, right? So it would be not appropriate to assign these to cover reading in the classroom, but they're great reference materials. There's also other great encyclopedias out there, like the Back to Life Wonders of the World and the Kingfisher History Encyclopedia. These do not focus explicitly on China, but they offer great insights on their excerpts on China. So I would include these in my classroom as well. If you wanted to get into something more specific, maybe a text that you wanted to dive into deeply, you wanted students to consume an informational text entirely, here's some other options. And again, I have collected many more resources than I have outlined here. You can see these lists are long. So there's lots of great resources, even some of the ones that are not outlined. These individual ones, they might cover Confucius or an individual closely as they articulate a historical era or time period. You can see the Silk Roads and What Was It Like, Mr. Emperor are picture books, but written like in great detail in the text sections, and they're really cool. I think students would both be drawn to both of those. Some other literature we find here is in the video and clips. I got a couple of sections here on videos and clips, websites and podcasts before we get into lesson plans and instructional strategies. So let's go look at the videos and clips. Again, I've only highlighted about 4 or 5 of these videos. I found many. Most of these video clips are about 5 minutes long, some less than 10 minutes, somewhere between 5 and 10 minutes. But I tried to organize them by topic, right? We have the large scale histories down on the bottom. These are going to be the videos that are like an encyclopedia in video form. They're going to cover 2,000 years or more of Chinese history, or massive swaths of an era, right? Well, we have a whole bunch of other videos that are more specified, right? Like some are about mythology, some are about just the Silk Road. I found a whole bunch of stuff just on the Mongols. And there's other long form videos, those are your documentaries and stuff like that. But I found like a lot of these were super helpful, and I would use them in different ways in the classroom, right? The large scale histories have their place when you're reviewing, or when you're maybe trying to present a lot of options for students to do inquiries into. While when students maybe find something they want to dive in deeper, or you're trying to articulate a more specific point, you might pick one of these other more specified videos. But here's a few of them there. I'm going to try to go backwards here though, because if I hit forwards on that, it's going to start the videos. Websites and podcasts. A lot of these websites are collections of artwork or cultural artifacts. So there's a whole bunch of museum and art collections that are super powerful. The Google Arts and Culture collections are really cool. I also tried to find websites that have virtual tours. So while we're looking at and reading about all these rich cultural practices and historical places, we can't exactly hop on a mode of transportation and get over to China. We can't go stand on the Great Wall, but we can use these Arapanos or Panoramic Palace museums to really get in those spaces and see what it would be like to be there. These are awesome resources. You have to be careful though, because many of them are done by they're like Chinese government official websites. So our security systems and their security systems don't always play very well, and they're often either blocked by even my own personal home internet system, like flagged it several times. I had to get in my settings, but these two should work at school. I've tested it out at my location. And lastly, I got a couple of podcasts. You want to preview these. The podcasts, some are very long form and not broken up. The Ancients is one that's like a long form, and then the History of China has chapters, which are more helpful when working with the students. I would give these as options. I don't know if I would assign them to students. And some of the podcasts I found on ancient China were like not really appropriate for students. Not that there was anything questionable in them, but they were more appropriate for the teacher to build up your background knowledge and build up your understanding. They were just like at a level that was too complex for students. A lot of the nuances would be lost on the students in a 6th grade level, and maybe even up to an 8th grade level. But there's other podcasts out there that are broken up in smaller pieces, use more friendlier language, and a little bit more explicit in their instruction that would be better for students. And lastly, we have the lesson plans down here. So my lesson plan, I chose to pair 2 narratives, Where the Mountain Meets the Moon by Grace Lin and I Rode a Horse of Milk-White Jade by Diane Lee Wilson. And I chose to teach how geography impacts, like how humans create the 7 characteristics of civilization. A lot of social studies curriculum focus on geography, and they focus on teaching these 7 characteristics of civilization throughout different places in the world. These are 7 elements that we can find and define in almost every civilization that's developed. So what I chose to do is parallel these 2 stories. One is based, Where the Mountain Meets the Moon, is based on a more southern Chinese like farming village. And I Rode a Horse of Milk-White Jade comes from the Mongolian plains in the northern Chinese geographical region, and they have wildly different physical geographic elements, and they cause each of these communities to develop very different forms of these 7 characteristics. So I thought it'd be great to parallel these 2 protagonists on their epic adventures, but also use it to teach how these geographic elements influence the lived experiences of people because they have to form different structures as they attempt to like organize and make meaning of their world. So that's all here. These are screenshots of a document. If you want to look at the original document, this link will take you there. All right. And lastly, instructional strategies and assessments. Here you can see I've got a whole bunch of stuff collected. All of these links will take you to a PDF document, or some of them will take you to a website that kind of outline how to do those things. But like I want to show you this one right here. This is an example of one of the PDFs. I have collected throughout the years many of these little assessment or instructional strategies, and I've put them in a folder. There's about 60 of them, and I'm giving y'all access to this as well. These are compiled from mainly 2 different curriculum resources, Studies Weekly and a book called 25 Formative Assessments. That is also referenced in the slideshow. And if you scroll down, you can just see they're just PDFs of like they're non-specific topics. So you can pull this up and work on anything, right? This is an inquiry planning sheet. You could plug in any subject or content you want there as you practice this literacy skill. So many of these are historical kind of thinking, but you can apply them in many different ways, right? So here's like one on concept mapping. You could do whatever you want with that. Also in the guide, we have a few different websites I found that have awesome teaching strategies and assessments, and many of them have like filter tools. Like if you come down here to Reading Rockets, they have like different age groups and different subjects, so you can use this filtering tool to pick out whatever you want from vocabulary to phonological awareness. So that's here for you. That folder is here for you. These are here. But yeah, I think that's it. That covers all the major elements. I hope you enjoy this resource guide, and I hope you are doing well.